Hey, what's going on, everybody? And welcome back to College Football Red Zone, your exclusive home for 7+ hours of commercial-free college football, where we dive a little bit deeper into our spring rankings, where I try to go and give you that 50,000 feet perspective of all 138 FBS teams. And we pick things up with our 133rd ranked team in this episode. So really appreciate it. Before I officially unveil this team, that you could go ahead and hit that like button, as well as hit the subscribe button as well if you do have to be brand new to the channel, because of the fact that, listen, doing these rankings, it takes a good deal of time to put together in the background, as well as doing the voice recording and the editing and the thumbnails. It all takes time to do those things. So if you could go ahead and show some love to this series, I would truly appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. And let's go ahead and get things rolling here with that little bit of an administrative PSA as we jump into who is that 133rd ranked team in the nation according to my personal spring rankings. And it will be the UTEP Miners, who were formerly a part of the Conference USA. They are now going to be making their debut season in the Mountain West, part of a new look Mountain West, where we did see, UTEP and Northern Illinois and North Dakota State. They're all joining this conference after several members of the old Mountain West now going to play in the new Pac-12. So a lot of transition for this conference as a whole. But zoning back in real fast on this UTEP Miners program, this is a big year for Scotty Walden. You're getting into year three, and you haven't really shown much progress in the first couple of years. You thought that in the second half of year number one, there was some signs of life where you feel that this team would have taken the next step and be a competitive football team, but it did not work out that way. So that's why we're looking at a 5-19 overall record for Scotty Walden in his third season. And because of the fact that it's the third year, we are looking at a program where, even in the more traditional sense, we'd be looking at, hey, this is primarily his players, and that is even more the case now that we're in the transfer portal and you can flip an entire roster in a single off season. So UTEP, they are going to have to prove themselves in the Mountain West, because not only is this a big year for Scotty Walden and you have to show tangible progress, at the same time, though, the Mountain West has shown that the Mountain West is at a higher level of competition overall, even with all the additions and subtractions that they've made than Conference USA. Whereas for Conference USA last year, you could possibly make the argument that that was the worst conference in major college football last year. This is a different song and dance, and I think the other newcomers is gonna find this out the hard way as well. UTEP is going to have to find a way to make something shake here in year number three. Otherwise, we could be looking at a situation where we could be looking at UTEP looking for a new head coach at this point. Because in 3 years, if you haven't shown tangible progress in 3 years, especially with what we've seen with what Kirk Cinetti has done only in a span of only a couple of years, you think patience was bad a few years ago. Administrations are not going to be as patient moving forward. And Scotty Walden, I think, is going to be a perfect example of that if they can't find a way to be competitive in this conference year one, which is a shame because I do like Scotty Walden. I really like that hire, getting him from Austin P a few years ago. But for one reason or the other, in the first couple of years, it hasn't worked out. And I'm hoping that it does work out and they're able to flip a switch here in year number three, because we see this during the bowl season. The Sun Bowl is an incredible environment, has an incredible backdrop. So if UTEP is a good football team, that's better for all of college football, because the Sun Bowl is just such an incredible stadium. And I just want that stadium in particular to be highlighted. The backdrop is one of the best backdrops in college football, but it doesn't get talked about enough because they haven't been very good in a long time. But let's talk about some of the additions and some of the notable losses that this team has taken in the transfer portal before we go and take a look into the record prediction aspect of things. So, for the most part, this was a team that actually did lose a little bit more than what it actually gained, right? So, starting with the quarterback position, you lose Malachi Nelson, which could end up being an addition by subtraction situation. Because Malachi Nelson, while he set career highs in passing yards, while being the starting for UTEP for a handful of games last year, he also ended up throwing more interceptions and touchdowns. So he's gone. He is now at Syracuse, which I don't know how he ended up at Syracuse. He might have been better off at this point going to the FCS ranks. Don't know if he's going to play at Syracuse, but it is what it is. He's no longer with this program either way. The quarterback that they did end up losing that could hurt them a little bit more is Skylar Locklear. He ends up transferring to Missouri State. So he was the one that was more successful in Scotty Walden's system last year. 1,800 yards, 21 touchdowns. Not super eye popping numbers, but he was a competent FBS starting quarterback. And now that experience at the starting quarterback position is gone, and they're going to be looking to turn to the likes of a EJ Colson, who does transfer in from Incarnate Word FCS program, but it's a program that's known for producing quality quarterbacks. Cam Ward started off at Incarnate Word, for example. He EJ Colson comes in with 2,400 yards. And he's also going to have an intriguing wide receiver to throw to as well. Carver Cheeks transfers into this program as well. Transfers in from Northern Colorado. Northern Colorado, typically one of the bottom of the barrel teams at the FCS level, but he was a bright spot for this Northern Colorado's Bears football team last year, catching for nearly 950 yards, which that is a guy. I don't care what you're doing. If you're posting nearly 1,000 yard seasons, you are able to play at a high level. And so Carver Cheeks is going to be someone flying a little bit under the radar because he is coming from Northern Colorado, but that's someone that I'm really looking at and being a starter for this UTEP Miners team. Carver Cheeks, a name to watch out for, which is gonna be needed because they lose a lot of weaponry. Ashton Emery, the running back that was had total touchdowns and 672 total yards. He transfers to Cal. And then their two top receivers, Kenny Odom. Kenny Odom now goes to South Florida in order to get coaching from Brian Hartline, who's shown himself as one of the most proven developers of wide receivers in college football. He's at South Florida. And then Wandame Davis Jr., another receiver that started opposite of Kenny Odom, does end up transferring to Wake Forest, and another guy that had over 600 yards and 6 touchdowns last year. So the weaponry is going to be a concern, and it seems that outside of Carver Cheeks, they're going to need guys that have been in this program internally the last couple of years under Scotty Walden. They need to step up and they need to play pivotal roles if UTEP is going to take that step forward compared to what we've seen from UTEP Miners football over the last couple of years. One thing that I will say is that I think the front seven defensively could be a little bit better. They did bring in Isaiah Bogertree. He transfers from Texas Southern. He had 80 combined tackles over the course of last season. So that's someone that also could contribute. No major losses on the defensive side of the ball in the transfer portal. So you're looking at a defense that could be a little bit better, but the offense, man, there's a lot of question marks in terms of those skill position players. And speaking of those skill position players, one more person that I did want to add before we get into the record prediction, Tavoris Jones transfers in from Missouri, hasn't played a ton in his college career, but he is a former four-star recruit when he was going through high school recruiting. So can you get something out of Tavares Jones? It's definitely still possible, in my opinion, just because he's sit behind like an Ahmad Hardy type, for example. We maybe he could be a really good player, but we won't know that yet because we haven't seen him touch the field extensively. So that's what we're looking at in terms of notable additions and losses from this UTEP Miners football team. Let's go ahead now and jump into what we have going on with the schedule reveal. So this is UTEP's schedule going into the 2026 season. Again, had them as the 133rd ranked team, but the program I do have a little bit on a higher pedestal. They have been recruiting better over the last couple of years, so that does aid in the program ranking, where I do have them as at least a top 120 program. So outside of that, bottom 18 type range. So that's something at least to keep in mind that hey, they're at least recruiting a little bit better. In terms of the ceiling, this is a team that could be on the fringes of a bowl game, and Scotty Walden could double the win count here. And if he does double the win count, I think that's considered a solid year. That's progress. And Scotty Walden does get more time to implement his culture and his system. And that would be the best case scenario. Them obviously winning the Texas Southern game, which is a game you gotta have early on in the year. But then you have a few other teams that I'm looking at in terms of being in that bottom half of the Mountain West. You do have at home. You have Nevada at home, which that's a team that they lost quite a bit in the transfer portal, but they did at the very least they added. They had a strong finish last year, but Jeff Chody has questions of his own that he's gonna have to answer. We also have San Jose State. San Jose State, that was a team that I was looking at last year that I thought could have made a dark horse run at the Mountain West title, but very disappointing last year, and they lost a ton of talent on the offensive side of the ball as well. So San Jose State, the Spartans looking vulnerable, and what I've been hearing from San Jose State's like spring intel, not good either. So that's a positive news for his UTEP team if you're looking for the best case scenario. You do also have Wyoming at home as well. The defense should be solid, but the offense, it's going to have to be an uptick in order for them to be a more competitive team next year. And then you finish out the season, you have Northern Illinois on the road here. And that Northern Illinois game in particular, that's a game you're looking at another team that's in the doldrums. They do have an interim head coach as well. So that's another opportunity, even though Northern Illinois is on the road. So that is a cross country road trip that you're going to have to make. Candidly, because I'm looking at a team that may have lost more than what they gained. I think UTEP actually might be a touch worse than what they were this time last year. And so that's why I do have the baseline as incredibly low as I did. But unlike a Charlotte, who we talked about earlier in the Spring Deep Dive series, I do think the ceiling of this team with the additions of KJ Colson and Carver Cheeks, it's a little bit higher to a point where you're flirting with bullet eligibility at that point. And if there's enough teams that decline, you're talking about UTEP going to a bowl game at 5-7. So that's the best case scenario. More realistically, I think it's a little bit closer to the floor where they could be a 1-11 football team. And unfortunately, we could be seeing the UTEP head coaching spot open up at that point, because then you're talking about UTEP in year number one. They had 3 wins in 2024. Last year, they only won 2 games. And now, if it plans out how I think it's going to pan out, where I think they're only going to win one singular game, then we're looking at most likely a change at the head coaching position. And we're back at square one in terms of finding the right man for the job. So that's what I'm looking at in terms of UTEP football, my 133rd ranked team. But I am curious to hear what you guys think about this UTEP football team. Am I too harsh? Am I just right? It should. Do you think they're going to be even worse than the 1-11 record that I'm predicting for? Definitely want to hear your thoughts in the comments section. But with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this deep dive series of in particularly talking about UTEP football over the course of the spring. If you have been enjoying the content, make sure you go ahead, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well if you do have to be brand new to the channel. Again, a lot of work that has gone into these spring rankings and to make this spring deep dive series happen for you guys. But with that being said, this is Jake from College Football Red Zone signing off. Hoping you guys are all out there having a good night. Take care, everybody.